Hey, welcome back, my friend. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. A couple weeks ago was Super Bowl, and I went to the pizza place to get us some pizzas for work, and there was a lady in front of me, and she asked for ranch. And the person taking the money, the cashier, looked like maybe a 16-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl, definitely Gen Z. And the lady said, "Can I have some ranch?" And the young lady said, "How many?" And the lady ordering said, "I'll take a couple." And it was the first time I've seen the Gen Z stare. It was this look of, I don't know what you're asking or what you're telling me, because she said a couple. So the Gen Z cashier said, "How many?" And the lady said, "I'll take two." She said, "Oh." And I thought it was funny. The lady kind of gave me a look as she was walking by. And it was the first time I've heard the Gen Z stare. It's the looking off into the abyss, not knowing what's going on in the world and looking completely clueless. Fast forward the next 2 days later, I come home from work and my son, he's telling me a funny story. He's like, "Dad, you'll never guess what happened at work." I said, "Okay." And he works in retail. He's working at Hollister. He's like, "I came in and there was a new job I'd never done before. It was intaking a supply of clothing." So basically he got there and they had a bunch of boxes. They had wrote his name on it. And on each box, they had wrote a number of minutes they expected it to take for him to put them away. I said, "Yeah, what happened?" He's like, "Well, I did that. And they told me when I started that I probably wouldn't get done. So just do your best." And so I started out. He's like, "Was it hard?" He's like, "No, you take it out, you scan the tag, you put a safety, like a sensor on it, and you put it where it goes." I said, "Okay." And what was the interesting story? He's like, "They said no one's ever done that before." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I finished my work. Like they thought it was going to take 4 hours. I finished in like 3.5. They actually told me I wouldn't get it done. And I finished a little bit early. And they said, nobody's ever done that the first time." And I laughed. I said, "Well, were you working really hard?" He's like, "No, I hate that job. It was a terrible job. I was actually taking my time because I don't want to do too good of a job. And then they think I need to do that all the time." He's like, I went almost as slow as I could and I finished." And so I laughed. He's like, "And then a lady, my manager said, Levi, just curiosity, if I brought this back to you and it was a piece of clothing, where would it go?" And they have a lot of storage. He's like, "The numbering system is pretty easy. It goes from like a low number to a high number." I looked at the tag, followed the numbers numerically and put it back. And she said, nobody has ever been able to answer that question without us explaining it. And it made me realize, one, I'm very thankful that my son has some common sense. Two, it made me realize that I think in my generation, the way that our parents raised us, the way that they the technology wasn't there for us, it allowed us to grow up into a world where we were forced to do things on our own. And that my generation, the kids that I'm raising, don't necessarily have to do that. We had to figure out, if we want to talk to our friends, we had to memorize their phone number. There was no digital way to record that. We had to remember how to get home to our house if we rode our bikes to someone else's house. And technology has taken that away. And I teach in a world where we have much younger people, and some of the older guys, myself included, can get frustrated. We get frustrated when we think someone should know something and it's common sense. And we say this generation has no common sense. Well, one, I would like to encourage you to not think like that, because I do think this generation has the ability to have common sense. I think that we've failed to give them an opportunity to develop that muscle of common sense. So I'm going to explain some of the things that I think we've done well in my house, in my family, some of the things I think we haven't done well, and maybe give you a few tips to help your kids not develop the Gen Z stare where they can, they can respond to other human beings like you would normally think. So the first thing is you have to remove the safety net of parents can solve everything. I think about that girl at the pizza place. Her parents probably never made her think if she didn't understand what they were asking. They might have said, "Hey, can you go grab a couple of, grab me a couple of something." And instead of her saying, "I don't know what a couple is," they just said, "It's two." They didn't. If your kid asks you something and you think they can figure out, because they're a smart kid. So if I said, "Hey, get me a couple of ranches from the refrigerator," and she said, "How many?" I'm like, "No, you can figure this out." And sometimes because it's easy to do and it's hard to be a parent and it's, you're busy, it's easy just to answer the question. Well, a couple means two. No, let them think about it. I think you know the answer to that. How many do you think that I'm thinking if I said a couple? Force them to think it through. And they can't, because if they can just get the answer from you, they don't ever have to think. They don't ever have they don't have that ability. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the confidence that they have the answer inside their head, because we get confused with things that we know being common sense, but truly we had to learn everything. Everything you've ever learned, other than the fear of loud noises, which I heard is an intrinsic knowledge, someone taught it to you at some point. Someone taught you that when someone says, I'll take a couple, that means two. You learned that. You just don't remember that you learned that. So when you're doing this, go out of your way to teach your kids everything that you possibly could think that they need to know how to do. Today, I had a bathroom problem. We had a blocked toilet, and I taught my son how to put a toilet back on the flange. By the way, you get the wax ring, you put the rings, the pins in there. I had to show them that. It isn't common sense. I had to learn that from somewhere. And I honestly, I don't know where I learned that from, but I knew how to do that. And you have to do that for your kids. Now, I do understand that some kids don't pay attention, and that you maybe have shown someone, your son, your daughter, something multiple times. And I'm asking you to keep doing it. Keep just reiterating it. Show them over and over and over. If they leave at 18 and don't know how to do it, that's on them. But it's your job to get them to that point and show them over and over and over. Because what common sense truly is it's knowledge that you have in a certain area, and then confidence that you could take that knowledge and apply it to something else. For instance, my son's driving one of our cars. It's older. It's burning oil. And I told him, buddy, you got to check the oil. How do I do that? Now, I know I've showed him, but I showed him again to put dipstick in, take it out. So I've showed him. Now he can do it. Common sense would be if I said, I need you to check the oil in the lawnmower. Now, I've never showed him how to check the oil in the lawnmower, but it's an engine and you put oil in it. And I bet there's a dipstick somewhere, and he could find that. That would be common sense. And you need to let them figure that out. If I said, hey, check the engine oil in the lawnmower, and he said, Dad, I don't know how. I'm like, well, think about it. What do you do in the van? Oh, I check the dipstick. Now, do you think it's probably the same way in the lawnmower? Oh yeah, maybe let him fall. And that's one thing that we have to do as dads. We have to let our kids fail safely. Put them in situations where they don't know what to do, and they can fail. And if they fail, there's no consequences, right? Or at least nothing, not getting hurt. You don't want to send your kid on a 1,000-mile journey and just say, hey, just figure it out, right? They're going to get lost and maybe run out of gas, and maybe, bad things could happen to them. But if they forget to, I don't know, if they're going camping and they forget to bring a pillow, that might be the time to, hey, maybe you should create a list before you go somewhere. Now you've got to roll your jacket up, stick it inside, your bag that you put your sleeping bag in, and sleep on that instead of a pillow. Like, wouldn't it be better to make a list? And you have to let them fall a little bit. One thing that I like to do is the pause, or the 3-second pause. When your kid asks you a question, Dad, where are my shoes? Don't say anything. Just pause for 3 seconds. Because sometimes, and I think we all do this, we verbalize our thoughts. And your kid might be thinking, where are my shoes? Thinking out loud, but they ask, Dad, where are my shoes? They're just trying to get the thought out. More than likely, they know where their shoes are because they were the person that took them off. So give them a pause, and you don't have to say anything. And if after 3 seconds, they still are like, Dad, I need help finding my shoes, then you could tell them, or what would be better is, well, where have you looked so far? Well, I've looked here, here, and here. Okay, I'm going to help you find your shoes. Where should I look? You're putting it back on them. You're not solving their problem, immediately. You're not putting the thought into it. You're saying, okay, I'm going to help you because maybe you got to get out of the house, and that's acceptable. And maybe you know where their shoes are, but you ask them, hey, where should I look? Well, I've already looked in my room. Could you look in the closet? Cool. Where are you going to look? Well, I'm going to go look in the mudroom. You're giving them the chance to think through it by asking questions. Now, this is going to be challenging, right? I lost my shoes. We're trying to get out of the house. But the more times you have, give them the opportunity to think, the stronger that muscle, the stronger the common sense muscle is going to be. And that is super important. You want to master the controlled fail, where they are in a situation And sometimes you could even set this up a little bit where like they probably don't have the tools to do this. Or, there is my youngest is 8. Sometimes she has a hard time opening up things. And like it's a can of whatever. And she's trying and trying and trying. I know that I'm strong enough to open that can for her. But what I like to do is I wait until she asks me for help. And I think that's so important. You want her to work through it. So she's trying it with the left hand, and then she's trying it with her right hand. And if I think she could actually do it, maybe I'll give her a tip. Hey, go get a towel and it will give you a better grip, or, do this or that, or there's a tool to help you. And then maybe I'll do it, but I want her to work through it. If I just see her struggling and go over, hey, let me help. You're taking that opportunity from them. You're taking that opportunity for them to think through it. One, maybe realize that they can't and they have to ask for help, and you want them to ask you for help, but you want them to put the thought process in. You want them to think, I've tried all these things and I can't do it. Now, as dads, I think sometimes we're good at being I'm not going to use the word bad guy, but maybe the harsh guy, letting people fail. Maybe you have a wife who's a sweetheart and just doesn't want to see anything negative happen. She wants to be the rescuer, and that is her natural role in life. If you're going to start doing this, you got to get on the same page as your spouse and just let them know, like, listen, I want our kids to be, to be prosperous, to be able to leave the house when they're ready to. Now, I want my kids to stay as long as they possibly can. I want that, but I want them to be capable of leaving. So you tell your wife, we need to let our kids struggle. We need to let our kids figure things out. We can't swoop in and take control of their lives all the time. And I'm going to start doing that. Maybe you've never done that. Maybe you're the fixer, right? Maybe you're the person that has always stepped into their life and just solved all the problems, pushed them all out of the way. And you decided, I can't do that. I don't want my kid to have the Gen Z stare and not be able to think this is the change we're going to have. But you got to be on the same page as your wife. When your 6-year-old can't find her favorite toy and she's freaking out, both of you have to agree that you're not going to buy her another one. You're going to let her work through the emotions of crying and sadness, and you're going to do that. And you have to be on the same page. I think that's so important. So I'd like to give you a few scenarios that maybe we could work through together to figure out, how did you go from, I'm going to fix this problem for you? And that's what, I am a fixer. When someone, and I've had this conversation with my wife where she's telling me something, and to me, it sounds like a complaint. And when I hear a complaint or a worry, I'm like, I'm going to fix this. Well, my wife doesn't want me to fix it. She just wants to get it out. So I want you to take away that idea that I'm going to fix it. I want you to take the idea that I'm a coach, right? A coach doesn't shoot free throws for their players. A coach shows them how to shoot free throws, critiques their form, and then puts them in situations that are high stress, lots of practice, so that they perfect the free throw. They can't do it for them. So what's the very common one? Dad, I'm bored. Now I could fix it. I'm like, hey, let's go to the park. Let's go get your video games. Let's get them out. Let's go get a coloring book. That is the fixer. I'm going to entertain you. What does the coach say? The coach says, okay, you're bored. What would be fun? Put it back on them. Have you tried this, or this? You're giving them ideas. It's okay. Or, Dad, I'm bored. Okay, cool. But you're bored. That's okay. It's okay to be bored. You don't have to fix that problem. Being bored is when, curiosity happens. Homework. Dad, what is the square root of 74? You could give them the answer. But what's better is, well, what do you think it is? And when they get it wrong, is like, how did you get to that? Can you show me what you were doing that got you to that answer? They can write it down. Show me the steps. And as they're going through the steps, this is when you could fix it, right? Because maybe you know the steps and they get it wrong, but you didn't just give them the answer. And that is really easy to do, especially with AI, where you could take a picture of the problem and it just solves it. But we're not teaching that critical thinking, and we're not giving them the opportunity to struggle. So what's confusing about this? What have you tried so far? How can I help you? You're always going back to the coaching, always going back to that asking questions. This might happen. This not might happen. This will happen. Little kid breaks his toy. Something happens, falls off the shelf. They're crying. You want to say, I'm going to buy you a new one. But maybe it broke because they weren't being careful. Maybe it broke because you told them to put it away somewhere. They decided that wasn't the right place. So now there's consequences. So what do you say? Man, that's a real bummer. How do you think we should fix this? and let them come up with an answer. Now, this is where fixing can happen, where, Dad, can we glue it together? Yeah, let's go get some super glue, and we're going to try to together how to use glue, how to use staples, how to use duct tape. Or maybe, this is the way this is right now is not going to work. But maybe, if it's like electronic, I remember being a little kid and things would break and I would take them apart. No, I want to make sure that they're unplugged, the batteries are out. But when something broke and it was no longer functioning, it was really cool to just take all the screws apart and look at the parts on the inside. That was cool. And I got to learn how things worked. And I got to learn that lefty loosey, righty tighty when you have screws, and that some things are screwed together and some things are snapped together and some things are glued together. And this tool will do that. Give your kids an opportunity to learn. Don't solve all their problems. Hey guys, this is Danny. Just wanted to break in real quick and let you know that I've partnered with Joy and Blokes to give you the opportunity to get your blood work done. Getting your blood work done is awesome. It gives you the opportunity to see where your health is in real data. Not only do you get the data, you get a healthcare provider that will give you the insights into how to fix the problems you might be having. So check out the link in the description. Now back to the show. Sometimes the problems are not physical things. Maybe it's the social problem. They're going to have a problem with a friend. And it's easy to go, well, I'm going to call their dad right now. We'll get this sorted out. As long as it's not abuse, as long as it's not, bullying, let the kids figure it out. Let the kids just, maybe you don't talk to that kid anymore. Maybe he is a jerk. You don't want to hang out with him more. This can be tough because you want to solve the problems. You don't want to see your kids in emotional situations, but ask them questions. Why is your friend acting like this? Was there any reason? What are they going through? Teach them empathy. Teach them to try to understand someone else before they try to understand themselves. This stuff is important. It could be the social situation is a problem they're having at school with a teacher. My kids have had grades where they didn't think it was fair. And that is an amazing opportunity to have them talk to their teacher. I don't like them to email it, but emailing work. Hey, send an email to your teacher. But what's even better is that you need to go in person and ask the teacher why you got this grade, ask her to explain it, and then ask if there's anything you can do. Because that human interaction, I think this is so important. Our kids are living in an increasing digital world. If you want them to be superstars, like absolutely rock stars in this world, it will be the kid who can communicate with other people on a one-on-one. There's going to be so many kids who literally can't look someone in the eye. They're on their phone and they can't look someone in the eye and have a conversation, have a hard conversation, have a challenging conversation, have a conversation with conflict and maybe even anger. Someone who's able to do that is going to do amazing things. Give your kids an opportunity to practice that. When your kids go through that process of actively trying something, praise the process, not the results. Because, they might go to their teacher and the teacher's like, no, I'm not changing anything. That's okay, right? Life is hard. Life is challenging. Human beings are challenging to get to deal with. If you're praising the results, like, oh, that was so great. You went from a C to a B. That's great. That's not where you're going. Hey man, sweetheart, buddy, whatever you're calling your kids, I'm really proud of you stepping up and talking to your teacher. I know it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, but the fact that you manned up or girled up, went there and had that tough conversation means a lot. Good job. You praised the process. And I think that's so important. So as I wrap this up, something I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to think of every skill that you need as an adult. It could be how to change the batteries in a remote control. It could be how to change the oil in your car. It could be how to pay your taxes. It could be how to sign into your bank account. And ask yourself the question, have I showed my kid? Have I showed my kid multiple times how to do this? And then pick one a week, couple a month, and show them over and over and over until they can get it right. One thing I really like and I'm very proud of, all my kids know I can't speak. All my kids know north, south, east, and west. I'm very proud of that. And that took about 4 years per kid. Started when they were about 4. Hey, if we're going north, we turn this way, or right. Which way are we going? We're going east. And I just asked them over and over and over. It took a long time, but they know. They know how to talk to people, even my 8-year-old, because when we go to restaurants, they order their food for themselves every time. They don't get the opportunity to go, no, you do it. No, if you want something, you're going to ask the waiter. Now, they end up ordering Coke at 8 o'clock at night, and we say no because there's too much caffeine, but they try. And I always encourage them. If I'm giving you permission, right, to do what you want, ask for what you want. So our kids will ask for caffeinated beverage at 11 o'clock at night at a restaurant. Sometimes we step in and say no, but sometimes we say yes. Yeah, go. Can I have a milkshake? And normally I wouldn't let them have a milkshake, but because they asked and because I gave them the opportunity, I don't say anything. Yeah, you want something, go after it. So find a skill and go after it. I think that would be really important. My name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title Podcast, and I will talk to you later.